Official feminists no longer care about women. We live in a world where 130 million girls have undergone female genital mutilation, and at least 2 million more are subjected to this cruel torture every single year. We live in a world where thousands upon thousands of women are kidnapped by human traffickers and forced into sex slavery for the rest of their lives. We live in a world where so many little girls are born and raised to be second-class citizens. Girls in Muslim countries are regularly beaten, raped, and forced into child marriage without consequence. But what do the world's feminists care about? Well, let's look at the most prominent feminist group in the United States, NOW, the National Organization for Women. On their website, NOW has a page called Global Feminism. And so what do you think they talk about on that page? Do they talk about honor killings, polygamy, and sex slavery that's prevalent in so many parts of the world? Do they talk about the barbaric cultural practice of female genital mutilation, which prevents women from being able to enjoy sex? No, according to the feminists at NOW, the most important issue when it comes to global feminism is gun violence in the US. I'm not kidding, that is their #1 issue. There are 10 million women in Syria right now who have to worry about being forced into sex slavery by ISIS. There are 15 million women in Saudi Arabia right now who are forced to wear burqas in the blistering heat of the desert. And they're forced to walk outside too, since women aren't allowed to drive in the Saudi kingdom. There are 40 million women in Iran right now who are forced to live under a theocracy that considers rape to be the woman's fault. And there are 90 million women in Pakistan who have to live with domestic abuse as a fact of life. That country's Islamic Council, well, they permit men to beat their wives so long as it's only lightly. What a joke. No wonder 50% of women in Pakistan suffer from domestic violence. And yet, when we look to feminists, the largest issue for one of the world's largest global feminist organizations, they say their top issue is gun control, gun violence in the US. Look, gun violence is a serious issue, and it's an issue that impacts both men and women. But how is that more serious than the plight of women who live under Islamist rule? Well, there's a reason that feminists don't want to talk about the real issues that are affecting women in these parts of the world. That's because today's feminism isn't really about equality. Men and women have already had equal rights in Canada and the United States, well, for my entire lifetime. No, instead, today's feminism has adopted a far-left ideological agenda. Today's feminists only care about promoting their anti-Western, anti-American, and anti-male agenda. Today's feminism is about promoting leftist pet causes and promoting a moral relativism that claims that the treatment of women is just as bad in the West as it is in other parts of the world. They repeatedly fail to call out the barbarism of Islamist extremism. And so in the fight between women and the Islamists who lord over them, well, feminists have oddly chosen to be on the side of the Islamist oppressors. Feminists have abandoned women in places like Iran, Iraq, and Afghanistan. And instead, they've cozied up to far-left activists who promote divisive identity politics. As Ayaan Hirsi Ali, the activist, the great Somali activist, she recently wrote this in the New York Times. There is the idea, which has tremendous strength on the left, that non-Western women don't need saving, and that the suggestion that they do is patronizing at best. After all, the thinking goes, if women in America still earn less than men for equivalent work, who are we to criticize other cultures? This is all just madness. There is no moral equivalency between the pay gap in North America, the pay gap, which is fake, by the way, and has been debunked by economists. Well, there's no equivalence there between a fake pay gap and things like child marriage, rape, and female genital mutilation. Those are all very real things, by the way, and even though they're most prevalent in the Islamic countries, they're also being imported into the West alongside mass migration. But the official feminists don't care. They don't even care when it's happening here in North America. At those anti-Trump women's marches that took place in cities across North America, did you see anyone raising these issues? Was there anyone standing up for women trapped in misogynistic Islamist communities? Was there anyone standing up to the true oppressors, the Islamists, who keep women down through their ancient and barbaric traditions and laws? No, feminists have turned their back on women in need. And instead, they cling to leftist causes which are disguised as feminism, and they promote their divisive political agenda. For the Rebel Media, I'm Candace Malcolm.